In today's video, I'm going to show you how I used this space to create this photo. I'll guide you step by step through how I built the lighting for this shot, and at the end, I'll explain how I selected the exposure that I liked. My name is Kobus Tollig. I'm a professional photographer from Cape Town, South Africa, and I post videos every week about photography. If this is something that you'd like, please consider subscribing to this channel to see more videos like this. So the first thing I'm going to do today is to get the frame of my photo before we start building the lights. So I have a R6 Mark II with a 2470 here on this tripod. We're going to go around about here for the frame. All right, and I'm going to move in. I don't want that ceiling in. Move in a bit more. That looks quite good. I'm going to switch on the spirit level of the camera so that I can make sure that my frame is level. All right, we can see that it's level. I see that the table over there needs a bit of moving. Move the table here a bit. For me, it's very important that this line is square with the frame of the photo. So the first light I'm going to switch on today is my main light. I'm going to set the exposure plus minus, but stay to the end because that's when it's really going to matter, where I balance the light with my backlighting. And the light that we're using today is the Godox SL100, and it's got a 90 centimeter octobox on it with a grid. And the grid is there so that the light is focused and beamed on me rather than spilling everywhere. If I take this grid off, the light will go everywhere and it will influence the lights on the back and the exposure thereof. But before we can switch it on, we have to switch off our lights from the room, call it ambient light, and get an exposure on the camera. And only then will I switch on the main light. If I up the exposure, you will see some light coming in. That light is from outside. It's sunlight because it's broad daylight outside. But we're going to drop it to round about there. And I quite like that. Now I'm going to switch on my main light. So I'm switching it on. I'm going to turn it to where I want it. I'm using a 45-degree angle because I'd like to create some depth on my face. I've got a bit of height so that the shadows on my face also moves down a bit. Let's have a look at the exposure. So this is the exposure of the main light at the moment. I think it's quite bright and I'm going to drop it quite a bit. So I changed the light to 40% and this is the result, and I think it looks quite good. So let's start building the backlighting. So the next light we're going to switch on is just a normal house light. This is the lights and I'm going to switch it on. There we go. Let's switch off the main lights. I'm going to switch that off, and then my big octa, I'm going to switch that off just so that we can see what the exposure looks like at the back. So this is the exposure of that light I just switched on. Quite like it a lot. We still have a bit of natural light coming in here, which I really don't mind. So we're gonna now try and balance it, because you can see we've got light on this side, but we don't have light on this side, and we need to balance this photo. This is a very old light of mine. It's an LED light, works with power. It's probably about 8 years old. Where this light's gonna go is just the opposite side of that light to balance it out. So what I like about this light and why I put it there is I like how it casts the shadows of the hexagons to the left. I just want to see, I'm going to lift it a bit so that the shadows goes down a bit more, and also get it a bit closer so that the shadows aren't that long. Now we have to check the exposure a bit. I like the balance that we've created here. I must say, down here, it looks a bit dark. However, what I also see in a problem here is the light that's in my frame up here. And I will either have to move the light or I have to zoom in on the camera a bit. Okay, I can still see it slightly in the corner, so I'm going to compromise and zoom in on my frame a bit. Zooming in a bit, out of frame. So the next problem in this photo and that we have to sort out is this black hole over here. I need to light it up. And about 3 months ago, I bought these LEDs online. I'll link them down below for you guys. Great little lights. Lack a bit of power, but enough for what I'm doing. They can go any color. There's a blue. This is like a police or something. It's got a bunch of settings. That's a proper white balance. This is white balance 3200, and I can set it up and down, but it is also full bicolor. And we're going to use this light to light up that hole over there. So I think I'm going to put it here behind this little chess set of mine and see what it looks like on the frame. So immediately we have a difference here and the hole is lit up, but I do think we need to up the exposure of that little light. The light is at 30%. I think I'm gonna go to 100% with it and put it back there. Let's see what it looks like. I quite like that. But I do feel like there's still too much darkness here, and I think we're gonna add a third light. Let's see what we can do with this one. I'm gonna put one of these on this tripod. And I'm gonna switch it on and see what the power is at. At the moment, it's at 31%. I know that one is at full power, so most likely this one needs to be on full power as well. Make sure the white balance is the same, 3200. And what I want to do is I just want to cast a bit of light on the whole shelf to bring it to life a bit. I want to show you something very important with regards to this light, but for that I need to switch off the main light. I'm just switching this off. Now you can see there's quite a bit of a shadow over here on the wall, and it's because my light is so high. So be aware of shadows when you play with lights. And I'm just going to lower the light so that that shadow becomes a bit shorter. So I like the effect that the light is giving on the shelving. I might drop the exposure of it a bit later, but when we do the final exposure, we'll play with that. Now, the next light I want to set up is behind my head because I don't like this dead spot, and I just want to create a bit of separation between me and the background. So I've got an old little selfie stick, which I'm going to put it on. So I just need to screw it on carefully. And again, because I know those lights are full power, I'm most likely, again, going to go full power on this one. It's on 82%. I'm just going to up it and also make sure that the white balance is the same. At the moment, it's 2700, but I want it at 3200 Kelvin. So I'm going to put this one behind my head to shine on the wall. I also actually wanted to create like a little angle on it. So I'm just going to create an angle, turn it a bit to shine up, put it on the table behind my screens. So again, I quite like that effect. We'll play around with exposure like I said before, but there's one more light I want to bring into this one, and it's quite interesting how I use this one. So the last light I'm going to use for the setup is the SLB60. It's battery powered, which is quite nice, and I'm going to use it for a hair light and a shoulder light, and we're going to put it way back here. At the moment it's at 10%, and I'm going to lift it up quite high. And I'm pointing it at where I will be sitting. So I quite like the hair light here on me. What I don't like as much is the light it casts on my forehead, but it means I need to move the light this way so it goes more behind me in order to get rid of the light on my forehead. So immediately you can see the problem is I've got the tripod in the shot, and I don't necessarily want to do that. I can Photoshop it out, but if I can save myself the time, I'd rather get it right in camera. So let's move it again. I also want to lower it a bit. So let's lower it a bit and move it away a bit. The light stand is now out of frame, but we have another problem, and that is flare. But there's an easy solution, and that is to flag it. Now I don't have a flag here or a tripod or a stand that can hold a flag, but I just thought of a great plan. Have a look. I'm gonna open up my cupboard. Don't look in the cupboard though. And I can see where the shade is being cast on my lens. So there it is, and there comes the shadow, and gone is the flare. So this is all the lights I want to use. Now we need to balance it. So I love the lighting of the scene. What I don't like is the brightness of the background. And in order to get the brightness of the background right, I have to switch off my main light and then set the exposure on the camera and then switch it back on. Let's start off by switching it off and getting the background exposure right. I'm switching this light off. I'm gonna drop the exposure on the background, and I think by simply dropping the ISO, it will work. And I quite like the background exposure like that. So as you can see, the background exposure is way better. Well, I like it. Tell me in the comments if you like it brighter or darker. But now I need to change the main light because obviously the exposure of that also dropped. So let's change it. So at the moment it's at 40%. I'm gonna guess around about 60% should do it. So I feel this is the perfect exposure for this photo. And if you want to see 3 lighting mistakes that's ruining your photos, click on this video.